Hey everybody, so today we're going to do a podcast about eBay equipment and equipment used to run eBay stores. I'm going to discuss some of the items that I particularly use to run my eBay store and have been using for a number of years now. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So first, let's talk about the way that I interface with the website eBay. I use a MacBook to communicate through eBay. Basically, all the communications that I do, whether it's printing labels, responding to questions, accepting offers, responding to cases, paying my eBay balance down, adjusting my inventory levels, running my sales reports, everything that I can do from the website can be done through any type of computer that you have. So whether you're running Windows or you're running OS X, doesn't really matter when interfacing with eBay, because it's really the interface really happens through the browser and the plugins in the browser that you're using. So I use Firefox personally, nothing over any other browsers. That's just personally what I like to use to run my store. The plugins, mainly Flash Player, you might need for some things, but for the most part, you can run eBay on a computer with an operating system as far back as Windows XP. I know I've accessed eBay through an XP operating system about a week ago, so up till about last week, it was still operating on XP. So, basic computer you need is just something that has a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor that's clear, that you can actually read the characters, that are on the screen, and a computer that'll basically run the operations of an OS as backdated as XP. I do recommend using a little bit faster computer than XP to run your eBay store. When it comes time to printing shipping labels through the online plugins, it's going to take a lot longer when you're operating on a slower system, and the internet might not be able to be as fast because the drivers just won't be compatible with the operating system to make fast Ethernet cards work. So keep that in mind when you're doing the purchase of an eBay computer or equipment for eBay to run your online store. So again, a basic computer setup, whether it's OS X or Windows, and then me personally, the next thing that I have is a Brother laser printer. I have a monochrome laser printer. Most of the documents that I print for all my companies are monochrome documents. It's basically a text-based document, which is perfect for running an eBay business. Now, the Brother printer that I have, I believe, is the T420, is the model number of the one that I have. Fairly affordable, anywhere between $75 and $100. You can find one with free shipping, either on eBay or through a multitude of other websites. The laser printer is still relevant because it still has computer drivers that match all the current operating systems. The cartridges that I get, you can get the high yield ones like through a place called Micro Center or Amazon. If you have these available to you, like at a Micro Center, you could pick it up and you could just print out the lowest price online and bring in that ad for a price match at Micro Center, because they do respect price matching over there. But anywhere else, you're going to pay around $70. Me personally, I buy my toner cartridges on eBay. I get 2 cartridges for $15 free shipping, so I'd rather get 2 cartridges for $15 than one for $70 by going to a store and getting that crazy price, and then trying to hunt for price matching and hope that they respect the price match that I'm bringing in. But yeah, I pay two cartridges for $15, and I get about 1,500 sheets per cartridge, which is about 3 reams of paper, which is about normal for a laser cartridge, especially one that you're paying $7.50 for. To get that many pages without any kind of mess ups or errors is pretty legitimate. So when I process my orders, I'm printing out all my labels through the laser printer. All my reports are getting printed out through a laser printer. So I recommend always getting a laser printer, because what it really is going to do is take your shipping game to the next level. So the shipping game really evolves once you're able to print with a laser printer, because if you're printing on any other printer, you're going through a lot of ink. not only a lot of ink you're going through, but you're probably going to end up breaking the printer, because most of the ones that aren't laser printers are not designed for high yield of paper printing at one time. A lot of printers that are not laser printers or commercial grade printers, they're going to need a cool down period. Sometimes it could be upwards of an hour. If you're in the middle of printing orders and your printer goes in a cool down period, this could really delay the process of you getting the orders out the door. You want something that's going to be seamless, and honestly, it's worth a little bit extra money. And honestly, sometimes it's actually cheaper than a lot of the other printers that are out there that are not lasers. Like, I know a lot of the combo ones, fax, copier, scanner, printer. It's got all the bells and whistles, but how often are you going to fax something? How often are you scanning documents? Once, twice a year you're scanning documents? Nowadays you can use your smartphone to take a picture of something, and it turns it into a scanned document. So it even has like page recognition on it. So using those bells and whistles is really just a waste of time. Just invest in a laser printer, monochrome, so you can actually function on eBay and not have to spend a fortune on toner, because that's going to raise your costs of acquisition in regards to how you're listing your items. All these fees equate into how much you can charge a customer for an item. So keep that in mind when you're making a purchase for a printer. I honestly recommend a Brother laser printer. I'm not pushing the brand or anything, but I am pushing the brand because it's actually a really good printer. I've been using the same printer for going on 3.5 years now, and I haven't replaced the drum yet, and I've just been replacing cartridges in it, and it's been a great investment. I paid, I think, $75 for mine. I picked it up at an Office Depot that had a sale on the printers during going back to school sale. So but yeah, this was probably the best investment that you can possibly make. That's the reason why I'm spending so much time emphasizing it, because a laser printer is definitely going to up your game, especially if you want to move from bringing packages to the post office to get weighed and stickered and labeled and tracking. That's going to change your whole dynamic of how you run your business. Having to wait in line at the post office, it could be, it's very dynamic. It could be busy one day, it's not busy the next day. It makes shipping time around the holidays very difficult to guess on what kind of a situation you're going to walk into when you go into the post office. Is the line out the door? Is it in the parking lot? Is there going to be one person in there working all these people? It could take you an hour to get through. These are a lot of questions, and it's a lot of time that you're wasting when you could be dedicated on getting your next round of orders shipped and printed by using your laser printer. So again, I recommend using the laser printer. Plus, it allows you to do all of your activities at home. Now, the way I have it set up, we're going to go a little bit into the software, but we'll go back to the hardware in a second. So the way I have it set up, where when I'm ready to ship my orders, I could print all my labels and pay for all my shipping from my PayPal account, which is linked up, and I'm able to basically pay for everything and then immediately print them out all through the same accounts. When I'm printing everything out, it'll actually mark the orders as shipped. So printing, and you also get a discount for printing through the eBay shipping system. So again, laser printer, couldn't recommend it enough. I know it sounds redundant, but trust me, the difference before and after your purchase of having a laser printer is going to be night and day. And you'll notice your productivity going up significantly, and you will be able to streamline your processes a lot better by having a piece of machinery that you could depend on and rely on when it comes down to printing. So just make sure you have a lot of paper on hand, because a lot of the time I notice that one of the main things that I run into is having the thought in my head that I have enough paper. So I always make sure I stock up on paper, because when you're printing orders, especially in large volume, when you're printing hundreds of sheets with shipping labels on them, and then hundreds of sheets for invoices, it adds up. You can go through a ream sometimes in a day of shipping, or like in a day of shipping your round of orders for that period. So keep it in mind. I always keep some extra toner cartridges on hand as well. I usually have 2 toner cartridges on hand, just so I can be as seamless as possible, because there's nothing worse than not having your toner cartridge on hand and you need to print and you need to go spend $70 on one instead of $15 on 2, because you don't have the time to wait, because you need to print right now because your orders need to ship. So Keep in mind, have some extra supplies ready for your printer, so just in case you run out of them. But laser printer all the way, brother, for sure. Next tools that I like to use is I have a hand counter. It's like a little clicker that you hold, and it'll basically count how many times you click it. And the hand counter is really great because when you're printing labels on eBay, a lot of the time they limit you at 50 labels per time. If you have to print 50 labels per time, it could get redundant and lost after a while if you're trying to count and read information about each order. So I use a counter, and I make sure when I get around like 48, I usually cut it off at 48, just in case there's one or two maybe that I added beyond the 48 and maybe miscounted or didn't click, because I want every time to go in there and just print 50 orders. So I use a hand counter for that. The hand counter works really good for that specifically, or when I'm using, I'm using it to help actually count items. Like sometimes when I'm counting cones out, I'm counting 200 cones. It's easier for me, to have a hand counter so I can actually be accurate with what I'm doing every time. So it's a good way to create a system for counting, specifically when you're printing eBay shipping labels, so you can keep track of how many you're actually printing and then how many show up in the print box. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, well, I have 49 that I clicked in my hand clicker, and then when I look on the screen, there's 47, and then I notice there's a mismatch. Did I miscount, or did the eBay shipping system just not pick up the order? Then I'll go, after I print out that round, I'll go back to the awaiting shipment, and I'll notice that a couple of orders didn't get included in the last round. When I scroll through and look at the prices, I can know which ones are which. And then I'll be able to go back and reprint them. So it's another way for you to double check to see what's going on, because the last thing you want to do is forget to print someone's label when you're doing your round of orders, or it gets mixed up with the orders that are shipping with stamps versus the orders that are shipping with tracking. Then you have to go back through and reprint the whole other label, and you have to go sort through orders. So it helps create systems for counting, and it's really important, I think, in the narrative for you to be able to get consistent and concise workflow going when you're processing your seamless orders through eBay. So hand clicker for sure. I definitely use that all the time. I like to write in pencil. I use pencils all the time. I rarely use pens. I use large Sharpies as well to do certain markings. Sometimes I'll have to leave specific coatings on the outside of packages, and I'll do that with a permanent Sharpie marker. A nice broad stroke one usually does the deal. So next, I use a box cutter, obviously, to cut open all my boxes. Be very careful when you're using a box cutter. But yeah, I use a box cutter to open up all my packages. When I get packages in the mail, I like to open them as neatly as possible, because sometimes the packaging materials could be reused. So it's always smart to use a box cutter to cut open packages, because if you do reuse the packaging materials, it's better to use something that was neatly opened and can neatly be put back together for reuse, versus something that's been torn open and it just looks really sloppy. So the reason why I mentioned a box cutter is really for the reusability of a lot of the packaging materials that you'll get in when you buy stuff, or just packing materials in general. It's always good to use a box cutter when preparing someone's order and trying to reuse items. So the next thing I use, obviously, is a tape gun. I use a hand tape gun. I got a duck tape gun. It's green, but it's got a real nice roller on it. It's not squeaky at all, which is something that I ran into with the 3M one and some various other cheap ones, which I just grabbed one that has a handle on it, went for the hand roller, the metal frame. The tape I use is called Easy Start. I use Easy Start tape. It makes no noise when it rolls off the line. It's a little bit of a thicker mill tape. The thicker mill tape, for me, I've noticed a little bit of a protection from damage during shipping with the thicker tape. Now, the Easy Start roll that I use, I like the fact that it makes no noise. When you're tearing off, 4 strips of tape for each order to tape a label on, hearing that screeching noise 4 times every order, if you're shipping hundreds of orders, eventually it gets extremely annoying. So I get the Easy Start, and honestly, the little bit more money that I spend, I buy 6 rolls for $11. A little bit more money than I might spend for a little bit less noisy tape. It actually pays off in regards to being able to package orders at nighttime, whether it's late, early morning, you don't have to worry about making noise and disturbing others that are around you. I mean, personally, for myself, the peace of mind of knowing that every time I do an order, I don't have to be conditioned to hear screeching noises really helps out a lot too. So check out looking for some Easy Start tape. It's made by the Duck brand, the same brand as the roller. They sell it. I know they sell it at Walmart, which is where I get it. It's actually cheaper than buying it online or any other store. So Walmart's got a good lock on bubble wrap as well, which is the next item I'm going to go into. You can get 175 yards of bubble wrap for $12 at Walmart, which is absolutely really cheap. And those are for the small bubbles, not the large ones. Bubble wrap's the next item that I use for sure when I wrap and prepare my orders. Along with rubber bands, I use rubber bands a lot. I don't use as much tape on the packaging itself. The tape usually is only reserved for sealing up packages and taping labels. So when I'm bubble wrapping someone's order or bubble wrapping an item, I use rubber bands. I've been using them for a long time now. They're fairly inexpensive, and you'd be surprised how much tape you go through when you're doing large amounts of orders. The tape can get really expensive, and you get down to the point where you realize using a 3-inch slice of tape or a piece of tape is more economical than using a 4-inch piece of tape, but it holds the same, so you're saving an inch. So every 4 orders you ship, you get a free piece of tape for that one side. So the 5th order ships with a free piece of tape. It's like, in the economics of the situation, you'll actually understand as you go through large amounts of tape where you can basically do the same outcome can be achieved using less of a specific supply. So keep that in mind as well when you're going through these consumables. Staples, I use staples all the time for bindings and making crush-proof packaging for some orders. Staples is another huge item, and stamps. I have a self-address stamp, what I use for orders that go out with stamps on them. I have a self-addresser, which really helps out for the return address. And then, obviously I have a date stamp, which allows me to date the envelope. So usually I'll have my self-addressed stamper, which has my return address on it. I'll stamp the top left corner, and then right immediately in the middle upper left corner, I'll usually stamp the date that I shipped their order. So it allows them to know, them as being the customer, know when their order was actually physically shipped and left my house for shipment, and then they can look at the stamp date to see when it was received by USPS for when the stamp was canceled out, and then obviously they'll know when they got it delivered to them. So it just helps for the transparency of what's going on with the order throughout the entire process, when it's getting shipped, and where it's going all along the way. Now, I also have other stamps that I do use that are already pre-made stamps. I have a Do Not Bend one, a Fragile one, and a store promotional stamp that sometimes I'll stamp on the outside of the package, which is inside the envelope. But I also have a thank you stamp, which a thank you stamp really goes a long way. When I'm printing my labels on eBay, the shipping labels, I like to put the thank you stamp. I'll stamp right next to the delivery address, because most people, the first place they look when they get their package is they look at the delivery address to make sure that it's theirs. Now, the first thing that they'll see if they look at that address is going to be a thank you. It really sets the tone for them when they're unboxing their order and they're looking to rate their experience with you. So a thank you really does go a long way. I do recommend picking one of those up. And Fragile and Do Not Bend ones are good as well, because it helps translate to the post office how they should be handling the package. And if there is something where it needs special care like that, it's always good to denote that, because the worst thing that you could do is not let that be translated and someone's order gets damaged. And if it's a limited edition or limited quantity, it might not be replaceable, and you might have to issue a refund. So a little stamp could go a long way. It could save you heartache in the future, so I recommend getting some pre-done stamps. Next thing we're going to talk about is my poly bags that I use. I a 10 by 13 and a 6 by 9 poly bag, which are gray poly bags with a self-adhesive strip, which you peel off and you basically stick it to itself. And these are how I basically ship my orders every time. I'll bubble wrap my items, and then I'll basically put the orders that have been cushioned already into the poly bag last. The last thing that happens is it gets slid into the poly bag. The two sizes that I seem to be finding most often happen with orders is going to be the 10 by 13 and the 6 by 9. Most things that I ship can fit in one of those two sizes, and if they do not fit, most of the time they weigh more than 16 ounces, and at that point you really want to start looking into priority mail shipping, upgrading to priority mail. It really doesn't pay unless it's a book that you can ship media mail. Beyond the first class price, parcel, everything else doesn't really work in regards to how much it costs to ship. You might as well just upgrade the order to priority mail so that the customer will actually get it in a decent time shipping window. Because if you don't upgrade it to priority mail, parcels could take 10 to 15 days depending on your location of where you are and where they are. And it could potentially make the customer unsatisfied because of how long the window took. Especially if you include your handling and shipping time along with the parcel delivery. So sometimes it might just pay to throw an extra $1 on top of how much you're already willing to commit for parcel and just upgrade it to priority mail, and that'll ship up to 70 pounds. So usually if it's over a pound, for the most part, I incorporate the priority mail shipping option into the how much to buy it now price is. So when you're buying that, you're pretty much getting priority mail shipping no matter what. So know that going into it. The poly bag is a really good investment, especially if you use bubble wrap. You can pretty much bubble wrap anything, slide it in a poly bag, and it'll arrive undamaged. So poly bag for sure. Try that out. And then if not, I do recommend looking into some priority mail shipping. Plus, they also give you free boxes that you can use for priority mail shipping, which is great because it really eliminates the fact of you having to supply your own shipping materials. So if you have items like I have like rolling trays, sometimes that'll go out priority mail shipping bags depending on the size they are, and they slide right in perfectly once they're bubble wrapped. So something like that's really nice because all I have to do is supply the bubble wrap, and I get to basically save the outside shipping unit, which is when you add them all up, it could save you some money, and in a way you're kind of paying for it already with the priority mail shipping price. So keep that in mind as well when you're going through your orders. Now, I like to use trays to set all my items out on. When I print out my labels, I'll go over to the inventory closet, and as I'm pulling inventory off the shelf, I'll actually place them in order of appearance on some trays. So I always lay out some trays to collect all my inventory before I package it. So a tray is nice because as long as it's a flat surface and it's not curved and you don't have orders falling on top of each other and getting mixed up, a tray really lays out visually what you have going on and what you've been accumulating for sale. Now this only goes for smaller items that would actually fit on a tray. Some of the larger items obviously aren't going to fit on a tray. If you're shipping smaller items or you're trying to collect items, a tray always helps when you're trying to sort things and keep things organized, so that when you're trying to ship, it's easy for you to find out where the person's item is and what the amount that they're actually getting is, because sometimes things can get mixed up if you have orders right next to each other. So I always recommend using a tray, a nice flat surface, to keep your information organized, or if you have a table to lay everything out on, that's nice as well. A nice reusable bag. I like to use the reusable bags that you go to the store with for my envelopes that use stamps. I have a flat rate tray from the post office that I use to move all my, I have multiple actually that I use to move all my tracking orders and priority mail orders that I ship out. And that really helps, get everything over, to the post office in an efficient manner, especially if you have a nice bag where you can stuff your orders in. If you're doing like 10 to 15 orders, get a reusable bag and just use that bag to bring your orders from A to B, because using like store-bought bags, like plastic bags that you're just going to throw away, is wasteful. And I always recommend using something that's reusable, because you can use it in the future basically until it falls apart. Now, there's a couple items that I do use in pre-production, which we'll discuss right now. Now, pre-production is before the listing. Now, everything I just pretty much named is everything post-listing, once the item is sold, and what equipment I use to handle those specific tasks. So, I also, and to finish up on that, beyond the poly bags, I do use letter envelopes to stamp flat items that are shipping with stamps, and I use index cards to help cushion whatever is inside the envelope. So index cards really do help in regards to help flat items not get so beat up, especially if you're trying to protect the surface, like if it's a picture. An index card really can go a long way too. So to finish up that, we're going to move into the technology portion of it, and the pre-listing steps and equipment that we use for our eBay store. So I like to use a nice bright white light, and in regards to what I have a 100-watt bulb, and I use that for the lighting. It's bright white, which means it has a bluer tinge to it. It's not as warm. The warm lighting has a yellowish tinge to it, and tends to distort some colors or make some colors look darker than they really are. I use the bright white. It shows more realistic color pattern and color scheme, and it'll actually show imperfections better, which is better for you, because translating imperfections in the listing while it's up for the buyer is better for you in the long run. When it comes to reviewing that product, you don't want the buyer to get an unexpected surprise, and it's something that they were not expecting to be in the condition that it is. So try to represent it with the best possible light, which I would say would be a bright white light. Now I go to the dollar store and I get these foam boards, which I use for like idea blasts or brainstorming sessions and collaboration of ideas. But I also use them as backdrops for photo shoots. So when we do the photo shoot, I'll get these foam boards from the dollar store. They're $1 each, and if they get messed up, they will get messed up through dirt and grime when you're putting items on there that potentially might rub off on the white brilliant surface. But again, they're easily replaceable, and I like to use them as a nice backdrop. They really pop and make the lighting reflect off of the surface in a way that kind of lights up the entire object from all angles, underneath, around the side, and between the cracks and crevices, so you can actually illuminate the item a little bit better by bouncing a bright white light off of these white foam boards. So keep that in mind as well when you're doing your photo shoots. And lastly, it's going to be the ultimate tool that's besides the laser printer. If you stayed with the podcast this long, then you obviously know that the laser printer I spent a couple minutes on just discussing how essential it is to your operation. But the last item is going to be my smartphone. Honestly, I run most of my eBay business from my smartphone. I'm able to update inventory. I create my listings. All the pictures I take are with my smartphone. I got an iPhone that I use to do all the pictures with. Once the pictures are in my camera roll, I update them I upload them to the listing that I create. I type out all the listing on my phone. It's just a little bit easier than syncing my phone with the computer, uploading the pictures off my phone, then uploading them to the listing. For me, I like taking the pictures on the phone and uploading it directly through the eBay app. So the smartphone is really going to be my number one tool that I use personally for my eBay business, using the eBay app, the PayPal app, and just communicating through the portal that they have in the app allows me to communicate with customers and do customer service. I could refund people. I could do dispute cases. I can handle pretty much anything you could do on a computer can be done on a smartphone. And I personally like the layout of how the app is for uploading listings. When you're uploading a listing, it's really user friendly, and I almost think that it's a little bit easier and it's laid out a little better than it is on the website. So, and you could do HTML coding on the phone as well for your listing. So there's a lot of power features that are included inside the actual eBay app. So again, I recommend using a smartphone if you have it. On the smartphone, it allows you to also have like a notepad where you can save pre-typed out responses. A lot of times when I say pre-typed out responses, a lot of times you'll get repeat questions, the same question every time in regards to someone asking you something like, why hasn't the tracking information updated on my listing, or on my order. They want to know, why the tracking hasn't updated, but it shows that the item is shipped. So a lot of the times, it's the same answer for the same question. You might get it often, so it's nice to save those in your notepad so that you can literally copy and paste, and it's the same proofread message. You don't have to worry about typos or anything, and it's answering the question for the customer. So a lot of the times when the customer asks that question, it'll be something to the effect of, a lot of the times there's delays in the eBay shipping system. I recommend using USPS.com for your most up-to-date tracking information, because eBay pulls that information from USPS.com. So if there's ever a delay or information not being updated as fast to the eBay server through USPS, it's best to go to the source of the information. So if you're on the eBay website and you're looking at your tracking information and it's not coming through right, you message me, you're going to get something similar to that response, where you're basically going to get directed to the USPS website. And the last thing I usually will sum up with is, a lot of the times the package is in transit, the information just hasn't been uploaded to the shipping server yet. So even though you're not seeing any progress with your package, doesn't mean the package isn't moving. So it's an explaining what's going on. It's giving a rationale to what the actual problem could be, which 99% of the time, that's the reason. The other 1% is obviously lost or stolen, and the package just didn't get scanned and it got stolen, or it fell off the truck, or got dropped as it was being lugged around the neighborhood. Whatever the reason is, there's always that 1% variance of it not being what you're describing. And then the last thing you want, I usually sum up with is like, let me know if it doesn't arrive. Usually always ask them to follow up with you to make sure that everything is good, regardless of what your situation is. Always end it with a follow-up of, let me know if everything is good, or let me know if everything is bad. Either way, and then thank them, obviously, for their time, because they're taking time to read this lengthy explanation. But that would be like the sum up of something that I would have ready for copy and paste. And I have about 10 or 12 different questions that I get all the time, and there's really, even if you have it explained, word for word in the description what's going on, or how things operate in regards to shipping windows for this particular item, you still get questions. So it's always good to have some kind of response, and that's perfect to do that with an iPhone or some kind of smartphone like an Android phone that'll allow you to basically run your business on the go. And this is really also important to be able to respond to customers' messages. Now, if you're waiting to go home and respond to them on your computer, and you're out and about, and you're maybe out for 6 to 8 hours, that could be a long time for someone to wait for a quick response for an update on their order. They want that confirmation. They want that security to know what's going on. So I treat my messages like I treat text messages. If it's during business hours, which is pretty much before 8 p.m. As early as 5 a.m. depending on what kind of day it is. But if it's between those hours, then for the most part I'll answer you. If it's overnight, I usually get them first thing in the morning. Whenever I get to getting to all my eBay question answers and offers, I'll answer all those at once just to get everything caught up. But for the most part, I treat them like text messages, and you should do the same, especially if you're dealing with a smartphone, because it's really going to help reassure buyers how you operate, what your customer service is like, and it's going to allow them to come back to your store in the future because they know that they had a good experience with you. So, and a lot of things can also happen using a smartphone as well that could help the buyer have a better experience with you, even if the transaction went south. For example, if a buyer maybe didn't receive their item, or their item was destroyed in the shipping transit process, you can issue them that full refund promptly without having to wait to go home. You could issue it through. I recommend issuing it through just directly through the PayPal app, but you can link yourself through the eBay transaction to your PayPal page to issue them a refund. So a lot of power tools can happen by utilizing a smartphone for you to be able to get instant service and basically do business everywhere. You could be at a coffee shop eating breakfast. You're still running your company because you're still getting paid regardless of what you're doing. You're getting paid. People are buying stuff all day long, no matter what you're doing. So you might as well give them that same service since they're paying you all at all hours of the night and all hours of the day. You should give them that same service to respond to them, just like you are open 24 hours. So these are some little short equipment, big items that I like to use that I think really help affect my business in a positive way. But these are the main short blurbs about each one that I use that really help me portray my company to the best ability with a consistent methods and methodology and systems. And then it also helps me have the most efficient processes because time is very valuable, and to waste time doing something that isn't as efficient and isn't representing your company to the best of its ability, those processes just will get refined over time as you evolve as a eBay store owner and as you evolve as an e-commerce giant. So if you like this video, subscribe, like this video as well. If you have any questions or if you have any favorite equipment that you like to use that you'd like to recommend to others, please share those in the comments below. And if you have any questions or any content that you'd like us to cover for you, please shoot that over to us as well in the comments below, and have a great day.